So I was scrolling on the interwebs earlier this week and I found a post that I thought was really interesting. I had it bookmarked, I had it saved up, I had it ready to go. In fact, there were some replies from some main Vancouver Canucks insiders and analysts that responded to this idea too, so I thought, hey, let's go out there and talk about this heading into today's Vancouver Canucks and Ottawa Senators game. Now, I will be clear with this commentary at the very beginning. I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch the game. I should be in Whistler right now, and whether or not I'll have the free time to open up a few hours to watch the Canucks game or even to make a video about it afterwards, that remains up in the air. So whatever programming goes on between Vancouver and Ottawa, we'll talk about that at some other time. But for now, what I wanted to do was go over to this tweet made by Canucks House, talking about the Bo Horvat trade from a few years ago. I think the funniest part of that Horvat trade is that Aatu Raty reminds me a lot of Bo Horvat, especially the development. The knock on Bo was that his foot speed was an issue, one that he fixed. However, in his first year in the National Hockey League, Bo Horvat played fourth-line minutes and was very efficient on faceoffs. If Aatu Raty continues to develop, the Canucks won't need to go look for a third-line center next season. Right now, however, their third line is suspect, something they should fix down the road. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to Aatu Raty, Vancouver Canucks, Abbotsford Canucks forward, he has been one of the better face-off guys on the team. And breaking out onto the Vancouver system, he's got 2 points and 11 games played so far to go along with his point-per-game rate at the AHL. He has been solid, and combined with his high work ethic, his face-offs, and his, let's just say sporadic at best, puck skills, Aatu Raty is a guy who has shown off some pretty good value at the bottom of the lineup. And for a guy who, right now, is only 22 years old, you can bet that there's a lot more upward progression that is possible here. However, to compare Aatu Raty to one Bo Horvat is an interesting one. Mostly because the ages, I feel, don't really align in the best way possible, although I will say that the roles that these guys have on the team are more or less comparable. And I understand where exactly it is Wayne is coming from when he makes this Twitter post comparing Raty to Horvat. Bo Horvat was drafted by Vancouver in 2013, he had spent the next season with the London Knights in the OHL, and then the season after that he had a 25-point campaign with the Vancouver Canucks. He then posted up 40, 50, 40, 60-point seasons with Vancouver before getting a 30-goal season in 2021-2022. It took him almost 10 years to get up to that mark. Now with the Islanders in 24-25, Bo is on pace for 58 points in 82 games, not in the same caliber of play as he had last year with 68 points and 33 goals. To be completely fair to Bo though, Matt Barzal has been out for a while, the Islanders are still struggling a little bit, they haven't won a game in forever, and Bo just happens to be one of the guys who is trying to carry this team forward. It's not really his fault. But when you think about Vancouver and Bo Horvat, you think about the development, there always was a little bit of a slower progression with Bo compared to some of the other younger Canucks that came after him. I'm thinking in particular Besser, Petey, Hughes. These guys had really quick developments and progressions in Vancouver compared to Bo Horvat, but you can't really discredit what Bo Horvat ended up becoming for Vancouver, which was a north-south sniper with some really strong bumper play. If we use the Elite Prospects comparison tool to take a look at Bo Horvat versus Aatu Raty, you'll find some pretty interesting results. At age 19, Bo Horvat played his first NHL season getting 25 points in 68 games, meanwhile Aatu Raty was a point per game in the Finnish Liga. Pretty good reason, honestly, to keep him in Europe, since he was so good over there. At age 20, Bo Horvat was in Vancouver again. He had a 40-point year in 82 games played. Meanwhile, Aatu Raty was bouncing up and down between Abbotsford, New York, and then Vancouver. We can kind of look at this season as a wash, considering that Aatu Raty did not have sustained development time. The season after that, at 21 years old, Bo Horvat had a 52-point year in Vancouver, Aatu Raty had a 52-point year in Abbotsford, and then this season, Aatu Raty has 2 points in 11 Vancouver Canucks games, while Bo Horvat had 44 points in 64 games in 2017-18. Now you also have to recognize that for that 2017-18 Vancouver Canucks team, and for most of the Canucks teams before this one, Bo Horvat was already a top 6 player. Like, he wasn't a fourth-line plug anymore. This 2017-18 season will always stand out to me because it was the first year of Brock Boeser, and it wasn't necessarily, Sedin, Boeser going out there. Boeser was playing with, Berkly and Gagne, and, do you remember the BBB line? Bo, Brock, and Berkly? Boeser had a really interesting amount of progression with guys like Thomas Vanek on his wing as well. It was a really interesting year. Sedin's mostly played with Eriksson in that season, if you remember correctly. But it's interesting because the statistical comparison between Bo and Aatu Raty doesn't align, considering the fact that Bo Horvat only really spent a year or two as a bottom six guy in Vancouver before ultimately putting himself near the top of the lineup. I'd say in 2015-16, this is when Bo really started to be one of the main players on Vancouver, especially after that 2015 playoff run, where he was playing with Ronald's Canadiens. Yeah, remember that name? That's a blast from the past. Bo Horvat then was a top six player in his second full pro year with Vancouver, just behind the Sedin line, alongside of guys like Sven Berkly, for example. However, I do understand the comparison here, because Bo Horvat, there was a little bit of a knock on his skating when he first entered the NHL, but he was a really clutch face-off guy. Aatu Raty right now, really clutch face-off guy. What more else do you want? There was a reply, though, by Thomas Strantz that I thought was interesting enough to bring up in the replies of this tweet. I'm not sure about this Aatu Raty-Bo Horvat comparison. Bo's foot speed was already, dude is beating NHL defenders off the rush, fixed by his age 19 season. I wouldn't say the same. Wayne replies, but he just reminds me a lot of Bo. Bo was bull rushing defenders by that age and Aatu Raty was not there yet. Feels more like a Bo light, where I would think this is where he could trend. Yeah, it's an interesting thought, Dran says. I guess I'd say I think his foot speed is limiting enough, but his hands and size are intriguing enough that I think he still may be best suited to the wing, even if Aatu Raty is also a face-off specialist. And then there are some other replies as well. Bo was a beast strong on his skates, totally different players. Not really, Bo showed more flashes even in his rookie year. I still remember that goal where he beat Brent Burns in a race and scored on the breakaway. I will say though, I think Aatu Raty has a bit more of a stronger work ethic than we had seen out of Bo Horvat when Bo was 19, 20 years old. Not to knock Bo at all, because I think there always was a good level of engagement from Bo in Vancouver. If I just had to rate it though, I'd say that Bo Horvat was maybe an A+ in terms of effort in Vancouver. Aatu Raty though, this season at least, even though he's been limited in point production and in role, maybe he's an S+ tier player. Even Rick Tocchet went out there and said that he doesn't even think he's seen a player who's worked as hard as Aatu Raty does. You can just see it in the way the guy moves across the offensive zone, what he does when he doesn't have the puck, how engaged he is off battles. Aatu Raty is a battler. And he's really taking that first overall projection that he had back in 2020-ish and using that as fuel to get back at everybody who doubted this guy. Because might I remind you to end off this video, there was a period in a lot of the hockey world's mind that Aatu Raty was a first overall caliber prospect. Not first round prospect, first overall prospect. But that draft season that he had was so bad, he didn't make the World Junior team, he declined in point production, and he slipped from first overall all the way to where he was taken by the Islanders in the 52nd overall spot. Owen Power ended up going first that year. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below whether or not you think Bo Horvat is a great comparison for Aatu Raty. Do you see the similarities? Do you not? Let me know what you think in the comment section below as to whether or not Raty could become that good. Does he still have the chance to being a first overall caliber asset? I would say maybe it's a little bit too far-fetched to go that far, but there still is some tremendous value that Aatu Raty has been bringing the Vancouver Canucks as a young player, and ultimately we'll have to see where that goes as he ages and grows more into a middle to potentially top 6 caliber center for the team. Okay, no, I take that back. It's going to be hard to be a top 6 center when Miller and Elias Pettersson are there, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.